Look, meetings are like super spreaders of poor productivity because you get a ton of people in a room and then no one gets anything done. It's just sucking the productivity out of everybody, and that will kill the bottom line for your company. Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Holistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Holistic Productivity Podcast. Welcome and thank you so much for being here for episode number 13 of the Holistic Productivity Podcast. I'm glad that you are here. Thank you so much for investing in your future. By listening to this show or watching this show, you are investing in your goals, you are investing in your dreams, and I'm just so glad that you are here to help boost your productivity so that you can accomplish all the things that you want to do. I know you could be listening to a lot of other podcasts right now, and so again, thank you for being here and listening to this one. And if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you follow and subscribe on whatever your favorite podcast platform is so that you don't miss a single episode. Well, what would we do for the 13th episode but have just a killer show? And that's what we're going to do today. I'm talking true crime, bloodbath killer show. Look, John Walsh, America's Most Wanted, ain't got nothing on me today for this episode because we are talking about the biggest productivity killers. I won't drag this joke or analogy out too long, but we are going to be looking at some of the biggest things that are killing your productivity, probably things that you can't get away from or avoid altogether. And so we want to look at how you can improve that and at least make it more manageable. In episode 10 and 11, we talked about some of the reasons that we aren't productive. That was a look more at the categories of reasons why we aren't productive. And if you've already listened to that episode, you'll remember we looked at motivational factors, organizational factors, and as well as skills and time. If you haven't listened to those episodes, I encourage you to go back and do that. But today I want to look at some of the specific productivity killers out there. These are the worst of the worst. These are the things that are going to suck your time and productivity right down the drain. And the first one we're looking at today is meetings. I know this is everybody's favorite, right? We all love meetings. Too often, though, meetings could have been an email. Let me just put that out there. You've probably said that before. That could have been an email. One person does all the talking in a meeting, could have been an email. Anytime you're just giving reports, could have been an email. When your leader or facilitator doesn't seek input or ideas from other people, could have been an email. Information that you've already heard, yep, you guessed it, could have been an email. I'm sounding like Jeff Foxworthy here with these jokes. Look, meetings are like super spreaders of poor productivity because you get a ton of people in a room and then no one gets anything done. It's just sucking the productivity out of everybody, and that will kill the bottom line for your company. Think about how many people are in the room with you for these meetings that should have been an email. If the average salary of everybody in that room is $100,000, okay, we're just looking for simple math here. That comes out to $48 an hour. You have 10 people in the room for a 1 hour meeting. That's $480 down the drain. So you have to ask yourself, was this meeting worth $480? You have more people, it costs more. Not to mention, too many meetings leaves little time for the quote unquote real work to be done. I've had jobs where sometimes I was in meetings up to 50% of the time, which meant I needed to try and cram in work around meetings. That led to working after hours, which led to burnout. There was loss of creativity, loss of quality. I didn't have the opportunity to build margin into my schedule. So this is problematic if we have so many meetings that people aren't able to get their work done. Another challenge is that meetings often don't accomplish anything. We sit there for 30 minutes, for an hour, and there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of ideas, but there's no clear direction. Now, if it's a brainstorming session, that might be great. But if it is a meeting where you are supposed to come out with clear objectives, most of the time meetings fall short of that standard. If you don't have an objective or a goal, how will you know if your meeting was a success? Think back to our roadmap and we have a destination. If we don't know where that destination is, how will we know when we get there, right? Part of the outcomes of almost every meeting should be assigning next steps. And it needs to be clear who, what, when, how, why. Maybe that needs to be included in there, right? Hopefully you know the why. But make sure that you are defining those outcomes before the meeting is over and everybody is clear on that. Now, there are a few situations when meetings are good. I don't want to say that every single meeting is bad. Strategy sessions are often best held by meetings so that people can talk with each other, share. Maybe this is your annual or quarterly off-site strategy or planning session. You may want to have monthly alignment meetings, just sort of checking in to make sure that people are still on track, that goals are still happening. Or it may be a project kickoff meeting where you're trying to get everybody on the same page and you know there's going to be a lot of questions that needs to be answered. These are a few situations when meetings are good. Other times that meetings may be beneficial are to build or strengthen relationships. I'm talking about a first-time meeting with clients or vendors, because it's oftentimes easier to build that relationship in person, even than over Zoom or over a phone call. Maybe the relationship needs repair. Maybe there's something that's happened and you need to try to fix a relationship that has been broken. Chances are that you can't cut out meetings altogether. So how do you make them more productive? Well, it starts by sending out an agenda. If you are preparing properly, your agenda should indicate who is the designated lead for each of the topics that you're going to cover. You may want to categorize them as discuss, decide, maybe even inform if you are telling people some information for the first time. When you put those categories onto a agenda topic, it lets everybody know, hey, we're not really deciding anything on this today. We're just going to discuss it. Or this is an informational piece only, or hey, we really need to come out of this session with some clear decisions that we can move forward. Send out your agenda well in advance of the meeting and ask for feedback before the meeting starts. This could be people turning in reports that they would give typically in that meeting. Maybe they are answering some questions that you have, giving some status updates for the whole group to have before the meeting even starts so that you can go in with that information. I've found that a shared document often works best for this. You can use email, but be careful about that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. hashtag foreshadowing. When you ask for feedback before the meeting starts, you are encouraging conversation and questions about reports so that you don't waste everybody's time when you are all together. Make sure that you stick to the agenda. Don't let people get off track. And this includes jokes, which I will raise my hand and confess I like a good joke. So I am often the one cracking jokes in the meetings. You need to be able to keep the conversation on track. Move the meeting along, but don't stifle discussion. That is probably the biggest benefit of coming together, is to have that discussion. So don't stifle it and make sure that it is moving forward. Another way to make your meetings more productive is keep the number of participants to the bare minimum. Make sure that you have the right people in the room and nobody else. I love the 2 pizza rule, which says if you can't feed everybody with 2 pizzas, you have too many people in your meeting. So that is a fun way of trying to figure out, do I have the right people here? Have I invited too many people here? If you are the facilitator, make sure to engage people who are not contributing to the conversation. It's easy for some people, again, I will raise my hand, to be very active and very vocal in the conversation. There are other people who don't talk as often, don't talk as much, but their insights are just as valuable as well. And so if you are a facilitator, make sure that you are getting their input during the meeting. Why is that important? Because when we feel heard, we feel like we are part of the process. We have ownership in the decisions that are being made. And that is critical for us as we go forward. I mentioned this briefly, but I want to come back to it again because it's really an important part of having productive meetings, and that is to document the decisions and the actions that are going to take place after the meeting is over. What are the next steps? Who is responsible for them? How and when are we going to report back to the group? Hopefully, it's not another meeting to come back together, but make sure that is all documented and communicated and everybody is on the same page when you leave that meeting. Let's look at another productivity killer now, and that is your email. I talked about this a couple weeks ago in my newsletter. Just a side note here, if you are not subscribed to the newsletter, I would dare say that you are missing out. You can go to holisticproductivity.com to sign up. It is actually free. I offer weekly productivity tips in there. I'm going to offer discounts for the planner and other products for newsletter members. It's a great way to stay in touch. So again, make sure that you check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can sign up. And also, there'll be a link if you want to go back and read that article as well. Email is a productivity killer, but it is also central to virtually every business around the world. Your boss gives you an email address and encourages you to waste time. I mean, to use that email address in the course of doing business. Here's a couple of stats. And again, you can look at the data behind this in the show notes. 4.258 billion active email users in the world. Research has also found that employees spend about 23% of their time in the office on email. 23% of the time. Now, if you work a 40-hour work week, doing the math, carrying the 7, that is 9.2 hours just on email alone every single week. College workers check their email about 11 times an hour. Okay, that's 88 times a day if you work an 8-hour day. 35.5% of workers check email or instant messenger once every 3 minutes. So when you add instant messenger in there, it's even more of a productivity killer. Go check out the rest of the stats in the show notes. I'll provide links to where I found that data. Here's an interesting question that I want to ask. Were you ever trained on how to use email? I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't think that very many of us were actually ever trained on how to use email. Look, I was in college before I had an email address, and there was never any classes on how to use it. By the time my kids came along, email was so common that we all just assumed they know how to use it. And um, I asked my kids, and one of them said, "Yeah, we sort of learned about email for like, one class period, but that was it." So I think that we are using something every single day that many of us have never been trained on. This means a lot of people don't know the features that email systems have, the ways that you can optimize it, best practices for using email. And yes, I am talking about the reply all button. This has got to be the worst, right? When you send an email to a whole group of people, and then what happens? Somebody hits reply all, and somebody else hits reply all. I've even had emails where somebody specifically says, "Do not reply all. If you have questions, email me directly." What does somebody do? They hit reply all, and we're just like, "Oh, man." So I think reply all is the email version of meetings because it wastes a ton of people's time all at once, right? If you have to send an email to a group, it may be best to blind copy everyone. I know we just talked about meetings that should have been or could have been an email. There may be good reasons to have a discussion by email. Again, is it better to waste somebody's time in a meeting setting or when they're checking their email? But there are too many opportunities for misunderstandings in an email. We don't get the context, we don't get the tone of voice coming through an email. There's a lot of room for confusion. People are reading quickly and they skim over something that's important and then they do not understand. Okay, so if you have to use email for some of these discussions, understand that there are opportunities for misunderstanding and confusion. Another reason email is so bad for productivity is because it introduces interruptions to people. We've all gotten that ding, that notification that pops up on the screen every time they get an email. And there are some people who stop what they're doing every single time they get that notification and they go and check their email. Number one, if you are involved in deep work or something that's critical, this is going to kill that momentum that you have. It's going to break your train of thought. You are going to have to come back and reset. But also, if we're talking about this in a reply all situation and you get a discussion going back and forth across email, this is lots and lots of dings over and over, a lot of notifications popping up. This is why those group emails can be so bad. I love the idea of a shared document or a workspace where everybody can have a more efficient group discussion. If you have not read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, I would highly recommend you reading that. This is a landmark book. It really covers a lot of different topics, but part of that book, Tim Ferriss advocates for checking email only once a week, if you have to. He has gone longer than that. He encourages you to check email as little as possible. This is because it wastes so much time when you check email, and it allows you to repurpose that wasted time for something else. This is great if you are an entrepreneur, but it may not work if you are a W-2 employee. It also requires that you train your coworkers, your vendors, your customers to not email you. And Ferris talks about how you can do that, gives you some ideas and suggestions. But as I said, if you work for somebody else, if you are part of an office community, it may not be possible to ditch your email altogether or only check it once a week. When we talk about email being a productivity killer, one of the worst offenders is the email that we send to set up a meeting. So here's the situation. You send an email to a coworker or a vendor and you say, Hey, when can you meet? We need to get together. When can you meet? And they write back, I don't know. What about next Tuesday? And then you write back to them, ooh, I can't on Tuesday. What about Monday? And then they write back, no, we're off site on Monday. How about Friday? You can see where I'm going with this, and you've probably been a part of these horrific conversations. The reason that this is the worst because you're probably setting a time for a meeting that should have been an email in the first place. So it's a double whammy here. The best solution for this problem is to use a scheduling app that integrates with your calendar. You can send over a link and they can find a time that is available for you to meet. If you don't have that capability, be very clear with them and send 3 to 5 different days and times. If you don't have that capability, I like to send 3 to 5 times over a couple of different days that will work for me and say, this is when I'm available. What works best for you? Now, I have done it the opposite way. I think I'm doing the other person a favor. My day is maybe all open except for one appointment. And so I say, I'm available anytime on Tuesday except 1:30. And inevitably what happens is people don't actually read to comprehend and they say, "Oh, 1:30 sounds great." And then I'm like, "Oh, actually it's not." And so we're back into this back and forth cycle of emails. So, how do we improve our email productivity and our time spent around email? First off, do not check your email every time you get a notification. If you can turn off notifications, that would be great. Otherwise, train yourself to ignore them and just keep going on your business. Set 2 to 3 times on your calendar when you are going to check email and don't check it any other time. One of those times should not be first thing in the morning. You need to come in and get some real work done right off the bat. Usually, your hardest thing, your most important priority, get that done first, and then maybe check email at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Another great time to check email is 15, 20 minutes before you head home for the day. Maybe checking it at lunch is appropriate as well, but only have 2 to 3 times when you check those email. This will keep you focused on other priorities and provide fewer interruptions during your day. Now, I swear by having multiple email addresses in your life. I know this sounds counterintuitive because I just spent a lot of time telling you how much time we waste checking email. But hear me out on this. Multiple emails means that you only check the email for the project that you're working on. If you have email addresses for your professional role, your personal role, and your purpose driven roles, now we're checking email only for the area that we are working on at that time. It cuts down on the distraction. I don't have to look at an email about my doctor's appointment when I'm trying to focus on a work project, or I don't get distracted by a customer request when I'm trying to work on my side business. So that has worked very well for me. Definitely, at the minimum, you need to have a junk email address. Now, my personal junk email address at one point had 189,000 email. I think it's down now to somewhere around 30,000 because I don't ever read those emails. I don't ever check them. This is what I use when I buy concert tickets or when I sign up for, some store. I know they're going to send me hundreds of emails a month and I don't want to be bothered by them and I don't want to waste the time deleting them. So I send them to the junk email. When I need to download those concert tickets, I go in and I do that and I get back out. Another way to keep your email productive is make suggestions rather than asking questions. Don't play that back and forth game. Remember the example of setting a meeting, and I talked about how I suggest sometimes that we can meet. Here are the 3 times I'm available this week. Pick one that works best for you. This is not just, useful when you are setting meetings. Be very clear in every email what the next step is. I've seen people who even put in the subject line decision needed or information only, and that lets people know what the outcome of that email is supposed to be, and they can plan accordingly. The other thing that I like doing is saying, here's my plan. I intend to do this. I'm going to move ahead with this plan on Tuesday unless I hear other input from you that makes me change the plan. Okay, so that is another way to just be very intentional about what you are saying in the email and what you want other people to do. And finally, your email program has a lot of great tools and automation. Make sure that you are taking advantage of the tools in your email program. If you use Gmail, you've probably seen they have 3 tabs up at the top: primary, promotions, and social. In Outlook, they do it a little bit differently, but it's the same thing. There is the focused section, and then there is other. This is Gmail and Outlook's attempt to help streamline your email experience for you. You can set up auto filtering so that email goes to specific folders. If something ends up in the wrong folder, you can move it, and then you can even train your email program to do that in the future. Say, move all future emails to primary, or move all future emails to focus. This is training your email program how you want to interact with the emails that you receive. And I've even seen Gmail recommend accounts that I can unsubscribe from. They'll say, you haven't read one of these emails in 6 months. Would you like to unsubscribe? So use those features when they offer it to you. There's also automation that you can use to move email from your inbox into folders, and you can train or automate that process based on a sender or a keyword or whatever that filter is. I've actually stopped using folders altogether. I used to try to categorize, and I had this whole system of 10 to 15 different folders that I would put emails in. That is a lot of waste of time, because you have a very powerful search feature in every email program that you're going to use. What I do now is I just delete the junk and I archive everything that I want to save. This takes it out of your inbox, but you can come back and search for it later. What I have found is, even when I was using those folders, I still had to do some sort of a search if I was looking for a specific receipt or something like that. So use that search feature that is in your email and just archive everything and then search for what you need later. So let's recap what we've talked about in this episode. We looked at meetings and emails, and we have decided that they are some of the biggest productivity killers out there. But since we're not going to get away from them anytime soon, especially if you work for a traditional company, it's important to know how to maximize your productivity while still utilizing these tools that we have in business. Make meetings more productive by sending out an agenda and sticking to it. Clearly state who is leading each section, and then make sure the meeting is running smoothly so you stick to that agenda. Only invite as many people as possible. Remember the 2 pizza rule. If they can't be all fed with 2 pizzas, you've invited too many. Make sure you keep people on task in your meeting and solicit input from the people who aren't talking so that you can get their input. Have clear action items and next steps when you leave the meeting. Don't keep it vague. Make sure everybody is on the same page when they leave and they know what is expected of them. When we look at email and the ways that it kills our productivity, we want to stop checking email so often. Max 2 to 3 times a day. If you can get it down less than that, that's great. Consider using multiple email addresses to stay focused on the task at hand. When you're emailing somebody, maybe to set up a meeting or something else, make suggestions, don't ask questions. Don't let the conversation go back and forth without identifying clearly what you're looking for And this is so important when you are part of a group email and somebody hits reply all, which, by the way, just don't do it. Don't reply all. That's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Finally, let your emails automation tools keep your inbox clean. Train your inbox to only give you the most important email and let everything else go to other or to promotions. Delete junk email when it gets too much, when it gets to 189,000, and set up auto filters for folders, or save even more time by just archiving anything that you want to save and using search later to find that. That's it. That's the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to check out the show notes. You can find those at holisticproductivity.com/13 for lucky episode number 13. Make sure that you are subscribed and you follow the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. That way you'll know when the next episode is coming out and you can hear that, watch it as soon as it is available. Next episode, we're going to look at why identity is so important to your productivity. It's going to be a great conversation, and I don't want you to miss it. So make sure that you are here for that. If this show is helpful for you, if you find value in it, I would love to have you rate the show or leave us a review. Again, it's not for my ego. It's not for anything like that. It just helps other people find the show and get the same benefit from it that you are enjoying. So again, 5 stars, leave us a great review. We would love to see that. Make sure that you are following Holistic Productivity on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, just about all the major social media platforms. You can find us there. I give a lot of productivity tips, motivation, advice, a lot of great things happening on social media, so don't miss out on that part of the conversation as well. And don't forget the newsletter. Sign up for that. Link is in the show notes. It only comes once a week, so it is not that disruptive. Don't worry. It's fine. Again, thank you so much for listening. As always, my goal with this podcast, the reason that I do it, is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.